The Philippines is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world. You name it, we have it. It ranges from, we get over 20 typhoons a year. We have volcanic eruptions. We have earthquakes. We have some civil fighting in certain parts of the country. We also have pandemics on a certain scale. So that because of all these natural disasters that threaten us, we've become we've developed an expertise in this area. In 2009, Metro Manila was hit by a disastrous typhoon and much of it was flooded. At the time, we had no Doppler radars, and people left that Saturday morning believing that it was just going to be a normal storm. But instead, the roads turned into rivers, and many people died in their cars. There's a great deal of damage. As a result, the president at the time issued an executive order asking for a public-private sector partnership, and that's how PDRF came about. The members of PDRF include many different kinds of companies and sectors. We've divided them into 7 clusters, though. That includes water, telecoms, power, emergency supplies, logistics, search and rescue, and early recovery. Initially, we focused on recovery after the Super Typhoon Haiyan and after the floods in 2009. However, we've begun to swing towards more preparedness and mitigation because we realize that money spent on preparedness will be more valuable in the end in terms of helping businesses recover. And so we recently started the world's first ever national emergency operations center. And this operations center controls the activities of the many companies in these clusters, and it directs them. PDRF is a member of the NDRRMC, that's the National Disaster Risk Coordinating Council, which is the government's body for responding to and preparing for disasters. So we have a seat there, and we have someone there 24/7 when an event, typhoon for example, happens. We're also members of the UN humanitarian country team. And that enables us to straddle both sides of the fence and bring a private sector presence into both the government and the United Nations. There are several examples where the private sector played an important role in responding to disasters particularly. But right after Super Typhoon Haiyan, which killed thousands of people, the head of the Department of Trade and Industry of the government asked the private sector to intervene. He wanted to revive the livelihoods of small businesses in the affected areas. But he said if he did it, it would take more than a year because he would have to go back to Congress in order to allocate the funds for it. So he asked the private sector to come in. The government picked the recipients, they trained them, and the private sector provided the equipment so that they could get back on their feet. And these are small businesses. They're dressmakers, food vendors, people who sold things from the sidewalk. And that's one of the most satisfying and gratifying ways I think that the private sector was able to help. There's an element of both interest in terms of the country. If the country does well, if their communities and their customers do well, then businesses do well. And so there's an element of both some self-interest in terms of the companies, because they have to have customers in order to sell their goods. So when you have zero revenues after a typhoon hits, that's not good. And so it helps us to get these communities to be prepared and to recover from disasters faster, so that we'll have dealers who can sell our products and customers who can buy them. So there's a good business case for companies to intervene. I believe that anyone who cares about humanity, and I think that in our souls we all do, and I think that the way for individuals and companies to get involved and to help other people is through activities such as the Connecting Business Initiative, such as private sector work in terms of helping people. I believe that it engages the employees of private companies more. They'll want to work for their companies even harder when they realize that their companies care, not just about their profits, but about the communities that they're part of. PDRF believes strongly in the Connecting Business Initiative. We think it's one of the concrete initiatives that came out of the World Humanitarian Summit in Turkey. We have supported it by sending PDRF representatives to Fiji, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar to help them build up their own private sector networks. We think the private sector as a whole has an important role to play in all aspects of a disaster, from preparedness and mitigation to response and recovery and rehabilitation. And it's something that we deeply believe in. It's how we started as an organization. And as a result, we think that the Connecting Business Initiative is an important activity for us to support and be part of.